All right, here it goes. Give people a couple minutes to arrive. And this one is going to be on fear, on the purpose of fear. I actually wrote something on this the other day, so we'll just see. Hello, hi. Give people a couple minutes to arrive. Hi, hello.
Can you make me like an administrator?
We, definitely not right now. I have a friend here in the room with me that, because I'm doing this on the cell phone as always, and if there's specific questions throughout it that I'm not able to see, I'll make sure that I can get to those. But today's topic is on the purpose of fear, and that's something I wrote on the other day. It's something that is a really profoundly important thing universally right now, and it's gotten a lot of feedback, a lot of shares, a lot of comments, and more specifically a lot of personal messages on the way that it's impacted people. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about that here in a little bit more open format and discuss how important fear truly is, because well, again, I do just want to reiterate what I said, that I've got a friend that's here that's going to be looking at the comments. If you have specific questions or anything, I'm sometimes not able to see what people are writing because I'm doing it on a cell phone. Well, so I do just want to reiterate what I said, that now you can hear me in the background, so he's got to turn his thing on mute. I'm not able to see what people are writing because I'm doing it on a cell phone. So would you mind just turning the whole computer on mute? Thank you. That was really funny. All right. So in any case, as you can see, he'll be able to see your questions. If you guys have any, hi Leanne, thank you for showing up. If you have any questions throughout this, hopefully I'll be able to touch on those live. But otherwise, I just want to go really specifically into what I wrote on the other day. And I'm so sorry if I shake the camera at all. So in regards to fear, we all know that this, or we're told at least, we hear that fear is a tool that's used against us. It's a fear that's used to keep us in a subdued state of mind and keep us complicit, which is definitely, from my point of view and from a historical point of view, pretty clearly the case, period. Fear is used as a tool against us. But any tool that's used as a tool against us is indeed a tool that we can use for our own benefit when we utilize it with discernment. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how fear is actually a beneficial thing for us. We certainly don't want to live our lives in a state of fear. We don't want to believe the illusions that are sold to us all the time. You are so much more powerful than some of the higher ups. A lot of the higher ups would like you to believe. You have these incredible abilities. You're not supposed to be in a constant state of fear. You're not supposed to feel shame for who you are or your body or your soul or your spirit all the time. But there are indeed times where fear is beneficial. And so we're going to just spend a little bit of time talking about a couple of those things. So first of all, I used the quote when I was writing my thing, my topic the other day on fear. I used the quote from Franklin Roosevelt when he was inaugurated, that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. That's, you know, an extremely common quote, and yet fear is a frequency. Fear is something that we can feed into or we can choose not to feed into. So to fear is absolutely a conundrum. It's a self-feeding entity. Hi, Dave. You don't want to feed more fear. You should never fear fear. It is something that needs to be faced either with a certain level of courage, which is to, you know, invoke some of that third chakra power and belief and self-confidence to face your fears, or to at the very least send love and light to those things that we believe are not going to be beneficial. Now, I'm not suggesting that we just lay back complicit in any way, shape, or form either, but we should not fear fear. It is indeed a frequency. It's an entity form. It is a frequency that when you feed it more fear, all you're doing is exactly the same. It's meant to be a paradox that you continue to feed it either way. So as far as fear goes, you don't want to just rise above fear. That's not our purpose of coming to the third dimension. You transmute fear. You transmute fear by experiencing it and allowing it to be released from yourself personally, from a collective, from a political system, from the human race. You know, it's definitely. Hi, Caroline. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. We started this at 4:44, actually very on purpose, because it's a synchronistic time. And this is a time for us in humanity to be paying really close attention to the synchronicities in our lives. They're going to guide us actually to find ways to face those fears and to stand up in unity as a family. So in any case, when it comes to fear, fear from a primal perspective is coded into our limbic brain. Now, there's an aspect of fear that is really beneficial. And of course, back in our early days in our primal time, it was really important to have a sense when there was a lion coming, when there was a tiger coming, or when there was some sort of danger that was going to be out on the road in the middle of the night, or things like that. It was deeply important to have these primal fears. And yet, you know, we don't find ourselves in circumstances like that all that often in 2018. Do we? Well, yeah, not in terms of wild animals, maybe. We don't see ourselves coming into contact with lions and tigers on the on the road, but we find ourselves in highly dangerous situations really all the time. You know, as a woman, I know what it's like just to walk down the street and be ever so aware of exactly who's looking at me, who's not looking at me. You might not think I'm aware of you, but I'm aware of you. I'm kind of hyper aware of what's going on around me. And yet, that's not coming from a place of judgment. I don't judge anyone. That's coming from a place of self-awareness. That's coming from a place of self-concern, of self-love. I'm just aware of the energy that's going on in the world that around me. I use my discernment in certain situations to get out of dodge if I need to. Now, that's the next thing that we're going to talk about. Empathic people who really tune into the frequencies of others, recognize that most everyone, if not everyone, I would dare say everyone, from my perspective personally, everyone on planet Earth deserves forgiveness. Everybody on Earth has done something or has done multiple things that don't make them feel exactly great in their heart, that don't make them feel like the best version of themselves. And so when you're an empathic person, you tend to be really forgiving of other humans. You tend to want to see the best in others, and just in some situations think that unconditionally loving means allowing people to get away with more than they should get away with you. So while it is so wonderful to be a radiant light and to be just this shining beacon of what it means to be the embodiment of love, that also in a way kind of makes you a target for certain people and certain energies that might not even recognize why they're attracted to you. They might not even understand it themselves, and yet you just radiate something that draws in those kinds of energies. And so from that perspective, you must be self-aware and self-honoring enough to just give that fear a little bit of, yeah, like I said, honor the fear. You in that particular situation, if someone's trying to take advantage of you sexually, emotionally, financially, physically, spiritually, in any way, shape, or form, you might have some red flags go up. And being a being such a loving person, such an empathetic person, you may want to ignore some of those red flags, thinking, oh no, I shouldn't feed that fear or whatever. But that is fear that's there to protect you. That is fear that is given to your soul to help guard whatever gifts you've come to this planet to give, and that we are all so beneficial for you to have here. So in those particular moments, honor your fear so that you can get out of those situations and make sure that you don't become a target for the brilliance that you are. Additionally speaking, I believe personally, and I think that probably most people who haven't already turned off this video, most people would resonate with the fact that we're on kind of an evolution of conscious, that we are growing in our capacity evolutionarily. And in that process, right now, planet Earth has been in the third dimension, and the third dimension is defined by, well, there's quite a few defining factors to the third dimension, but one of the big ones is contrast. And contrast is in and of itself polarities. It's two opposites. Now, in terms of art that takes something that's two-dimensional, it builds it into a third-dimensional picture or sculpture or whatever the medium may be. But in terms of an evolution of consciousness, it takes consciousness beings from a second dimension to a third dimension, and you continue to progress. And just like any school, just like any other progression of knowledge, there are certain lessons that you learn early on that don't necessarily need to be continued lessons as you progress through this evolution of consciousness. So in the third dimension, fear is actually a requirement. It is part of our process of learning. We learn the essence of unconditional love by understanding what unconditional love is not, by sometimes making mistakes and having to learn from them, by being subjected to other people's mistakes and having to learn from them as well. You know, I haven't only learned from the mistakes that I've made, and trust me, I've learned a lot from those, but I've learned quite a lot from the mistakes that have been made where I've felt maybe in that situation like I wasn't part of the decision, and yet I can see from an evolutionary standpoint how I would have been part of that decision because I grew so much from both sides of the equation. And so and those moments may have included a lot of fear. Now you can choose to use fear as a springboard, as a point to grow from. And certainly a lot of spiritual teachers would say, and I definitely agree with this, I resonate with this, that your fears, when you seek them out and you choose to find what you're afraid of and to step up to the plate and step through that fear, that the sense of liberation that you feel is so, it's unlike anything that you can really put into words. It is the feeling of gaining a lightness instantly. It's like losing 10 pounds and you really feel like you've lost weight because there's a liberation, a soul liberation that makes you feel lighter because you're not held down by something that is illusionary anymore. There's nothing that you need to fear when you come into true knowing of who you are and the essence of light and love and the God self that you are at your essence. So when you start to seek your fears and you come through them, oftentimes people end up finding out that those things end up defining the rest of their life. They end up deciding that that is what they want to have be their calling in life. Public speaking is one of those examples. A good example of, I don't know, I could imagine that there's probably plenty of Olympic athletes who may, even swimmers or something like that, who may have been a little bit scared the very first time that they ever got in the water. And yet, even as a child, when you face your fears, it suddenly becomes something that you are so excited about. It's an opportunity to go do it again. I want to do that again. I want to do that again. Well, that is the same exact thing that happens when you're an adult. When you face your fears, you get a spark that's ignited in you, and that spark can be used to really define your life's purpose, to start, or not necessarily define it, to find it. Suddenly you realize, oh my gosh, this is what was my life purpose. That ignition, that igniting factor is a third chakra ignition that just really gets the rest of your life going on a path that's going to fully nurture your soul, that's going to feed you in a way that hopefully is extremely abundant in all of the financial ways and stuff, but that's not nearly as important as waking up and just being excited to be alive, being on your soul's path, knowing that what you're doing is benefiting the world in some way, if no other way than just your absolute joy. So fears are really a beneficial thing when you allow them to be. I hope that you can find ways to let that be a tool in your life so that we as a human family can graduate from the lesson of fear. It is a third dimensional consciousness lesson that is not required as you graduate beyond that level of consciousness. And so it's kind of one of those, I don't know, it's just one of those lessons that once you learn it, it's learned well enough throughout your soul, your spirit, that you don't need it as you continue to advance and to unity consciousness. But you'll always be grateful for the lessons that you learned, for your willingness to, your bravery to be willing to go through those lessons and to learn from them, but at some point, not just as an individual, but as a human family, to face those fears, to step through them, and to graduate from that lesson so that we no longer need them. Certainly, they don't need to be faced with fear. That, like I said, that's just a self-fulfilling or a self-feeding entity. You just continue to feed fear. So don't be afraid of fear. Do not ever be afraid of the illusions that others are trying to subject over you. Just recognize that the only reason anyone would ever try to manipulate you with illusions is because they recognize how powerful you are. So I hope that you can recognize how powerful you are so that you will not be subjected to their fear tactics. And above all else, just ask questions, lots of questions. Know that you are your ultimate teacher, but go out and seek other teachers, seek knowledge, seek information so that you can find answers to the questions that will help you to find your soul's purpose. And I hope that you are willing to be honest with yourself and really, really raw in seeking some of those fears and being willing to step through them so that you can feel the sense of liberation that comes from that. I love you all and look forward to the next time we all see each other. Love and light. Bye.